The twin moons of Zalthar cast silver shadows across the crystalline forest as Edward stumbled through the undergrowth, his breathing ragged. The diplomatic mission to the Zaltharian homeworld was supposed to be routine, a simple cultural exchange between humanity and one of the galaxy's oldest civilizations. Nobody had mentioned the predators. The scream that tore through the night wasn't human. It was higher-pitched, almost musical, despite the terror embedded within it. Edward's hand instinctively went to the plasma cutter at his belt. A tool, not a weapon, but it would have to do. He crashed through a barrier of bioluminescent vines and froze. A Zaltharian girl lay crumpled against a massive tree trunk, her iridescent skin pale with shock. Deep gashes ran across her shoulder and side, leaking violet blood that steamed in the cool air. Her large amber eyes, 3 of them arranged in a triangle on her face, locked onto Edward with a mixture of hope and resignation. Standing between them was a Kreshva, an apex predator native to this world. 8 feet of scaled muscle and razor-sharp claws with a jaw that could crush starship hull plating. The beast's attention was fixed on the wounded girl, saliva dripping from rows of serrated teeth. Edward had never been a fighter. Back on Earth, he was a botanist's assistant, chosen for this mission because of his knowledge of xenobiology, not his combat skills. His hands trembled as he raised the plasma cutter, its orange blade humming to life. "Hey!" he shouted, his voice cracking. "Over here, ugly!" The Kreshva's head swiveled toward him, 6 red eyes narrowing. For a heartbeat, nothing moved. Then the creature charged. Edward dove sideways, the beast's claws gouging deep furrows in the tree where he'd stood. He rolled to his feet, slashing wildly with the cutter. The blade connected with the creature's flank and it roared, a sound that shook the leaves from the trees. The girl, Lana he remembered from the briefing files, daughter of Chief Calvex, tried to stand but collapsed with a cry of pain. The Kreshva noticed and turned back toward its original prey. "No!" Edward threw himself at the beast, driving the plasma cutter deep into its shoulder. The Kreshva bucked, throwing him against a tree trunk. Pain exploded through his ribs, but he forced himself up. His vision swam, but he could see Lana's 3 eyes watching him with something like wonder. The beast circled, more cautious now, bleeding from multiple wounds. Edward's training was non-existent, his weapon inadequate, his body already failing. But as he looked at Lana, at the fear and gratitude in her alien features, he made a choice that would echo across the galaxy. He charged. The Kreshva met him head-on, and for 30 seconds that felt like hours. They became a whirlwind of claws, teeth, and burning plasma. Edward felt something tear in his leg, tasted blood in his mouth, but he didn't stop. He stabbed, slashed, and bludgeoned with everything he had. Finally, with a gurgling cry, the Kreshva collapsed. Edward fell beside it, his plasma cutter still embedded in the creature's skull. He'd won, but consciousness was slipping away fast. The last thing he saw was Lana crawling toward him, tears streaming down her face, her 3-fingered hand reaching for his. Edward woke 3 days later in the Zaltharian Medical Center, wrapped in regenerative membranes that itched terribly. Standing beside his bed was Chief Calvex himself, the leader of the Zaltharian High Council. The chief's scales shifted through colors Edward had learned indicated deep thought, blues and purples swirling across his imposing frame. "The human awakens," Calvex said, his translator rendering the musical language into perfect English. "My daughter lives because of you." Edward tried to sit up and immediately regretted it. Is Lana okay? She will recover fully thanks to your intervention." The chief's 3 eyes studied Edward intently. "Do you understand what you've done, young human?" "I saved someone who needed help?" Calvex's scales rippled with what Edward's xenopsychology training suggested was amusement. For 5,000 years, the Zaltharian people have measured worth by wisdom, by age, by accumulated knowledge. We are an ancient race, proud of our civilization's accomplishments. We have long looked at younger species, especially humanity, as children playing with forces they don't understand. The chief moved to the window, gazing out at the crystal spires of the capital. "Then you arrived, a boy barely into adulthood by even your species' standards. No combat training, no enhanced biology, no advanced weaponry, just a tool meant for cutting plants." He turned back to Edward. "My daughter is a trained warrior, educated in our finest academies, equipped with ceremonial armor that has protected our family for generations. Yet when the Kreshva attacked, her training and equipment failed her. she would have died. Calvex approached the bed, and to Edward's shock, the towering alien leader bowed, a gesture of profound respect in Zaltharian culture. You had every reason to run. You had every excuse to save yourself. The Kreshva is our world's nightmare, a creature even our warriors approach with caution. Yet you, with your fragile human body and improvised weapon, chose to stand between death and someone you barely knew. Not because of duty or honor or glory, but because it was right. The chief's scales shifted to a warm golden hue. We Zaltharians have spent millennia debating the nature of courage, writing treatises on moral philosophy, constructing elaborate frameworks for ethical behavior. You simply acted. In that moment, you taught us something we had forgotten in our ancient wisdom, that courage is not the absence of fear, but the refusal to let fear decide. Edward felt his face flush. I couldn't let her die. Precisely, Calvex said softly. And that, young human, is why I am hereby proposing to the Council that humanity be granted senior species status, with full voting rights and cultural privileges. Not because of your technology or your military might, but because you have shown us what we had lost, the willingness to sacrifice everything for what is right, regardless of the cost. The chief placed a ceremonial medallion on Edward's chest, the Star of Calvex, an honor given only 3 times in Zaltharian history. My daughter wishes to speak with you when you're recovered. She has much to say to the human who taught an ancient species what it truly means to be civilized. As Calvex left, Edward stared at the medallion, its alien metals catching the light. He'd come to Zalthar to study plants. Instead, he'd helped bridge the gap between worlds, not through diplomacy or technology, but through a simple act of human decency. Outside his window, the twin moons rose again, and somewhere in the Crystal City, a girl named Luna was telling her people about the human boy who fought a nightmare to save her life. And the galaxy would never look at humanity the same way again.